which means there's spare capacity if people can't get on one. If anyone texts you or anything, you can already write in the chat now to everyone.
Yeah.
That anyone that needs. Oh gosh, we're on.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to do it. I'll do it when I can see who's in the chat room. I'll do that tomorrow. Anyone that needs what?
Right. We are live, so I suggest you let everyone in.
Right, so you'll need to make me back as host.
Okay, I'm going to make you a host. Okay.
I can't do it otherwise.
1 second. Can't find you. Oh.
We're setting it up, Gary.
Okay, you are.
Right, okay.
Okay, I would like.
And what are you? Are you? Sorry.
I should be co-host. I would let in the family now, please.
But are you co-host?
I
would just want to make sure that you're co-host. Well, let me just make you the co-host.
Make me co-host. Yeah, because otherwise I can't do anything.
Yes, exactly. So I wanted to make sure that's right first.
Okay, so I'd let everyone in. It's already 2 minutes too, but right. mute all when they come in.
Right, is it? And if everyone's muted, then what's going to happen is you'll have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
To move this up. Very nice. Martin, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you perfectly.
I want to wish you long life.
Nice of you. Nice to see you, even if it is in these circumstances.
I know.
Quite a while since we last met.
I know. I'm thinking of you and all the family.
Right. We're going to exceed the 100. We're already up to 93.
So can I make a suggestion? What you need to do now
is Arié on? Where's Arié?
He should be coming on.
I had Arié. I did have Arié coming on. I didn't know where he's got to. I'll make sure that there's space for him. I did actually.
Mervyn Leverton. We also need.
Yeah, he's on. He's on.
No, he's not on yet. I have. No, he's not on yet.
Oh, Karen.
I know. Right. Okay.
So the suggestion is, we are on YouTube as well, Elaine. So what we will do is ask some people to move across and then let in the others if needs be.
Okay.
Okay, we will sort it.
We sent both links and we have been telling people to join on YouTube.
So if anyone texts you or WhatsApps you now, please tell them to go to YouTube.
Yeah.
Karen, you can decide who comes in. So can you allow in Arié Grossman?
Yeah, I did click on that, but I think it all moved down and I've got to find his name again.
My answer saying that I just got to remember to put it on mute, won't I? If the phone goes, I have to go on mute, won't I? Get the handset away with my hat.
Right, so I'm going to let some other people. I'm going to mute everybody. Okay, if anybody wants to speak, then when it's time to speak, we'll unmute everybody at the time. I think I still need Mervyn Leverton, actually. Hang on.
Everybody got 10 participants.
We're not muted.
Sorry, I'm just looking for Mervyn and I can't see him. Yes, there is.
Aryeh?
Can we just wish you Hamad Menachem בסוף שער בלי ציון
And Josh is
בירושלים?
there.
And Josh also, and Elaine, before everybody comes on.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And Martin is there as well.
And Martin also. We're sorry we can't be together in person.
That's it. Stop.
Okay, so I'm now going to mute everybody and then everybody will start to come in. Okay.
Yeah.
We're waiting as Rob answers.
There's no sound.
No one's talking, that's why I don't.
It's mute, yes.
Evening. Good evening, Aryeh.
But where's the camera? Why is not?
Karen,
Yeah, yes.
am I right in saying that we don't have any more capacity, or we do?
Um,
Can you let more people in or not?
I don't know. Is there any more space?
Or just press admit all and see what happens?
Well, no, I don't think it's gonna.
Okay.
Oh wait, no, in the meeting is 45, so we've got more we can add.
So,
Yeah.
just checking. Okay, so if you let those,
There'll be
Can we put a message to those in the waiting room?
yeah, but let's see if everyone get in.
I can. Do you want me to? I can just admit all and see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah, let's see. Try everyone, and if not, we'll send a message to everyone.
Silly cow. Oh, no.
Karen, can we start?
I think you can start. I think someone's just having trouble joining. I think anybody. They won't. I think that'll be it.
Okay,
Can you
good.
put a message, Karen, for anybody that enters the waiting room to go onto the YouTube channel?
Good evening, everyone. if you are aware, or if you get messages from people that they cannot enter our Zoom tonight, it's because we may have reached capacity. There is also, as you'll see on the left-hand top right-hand corner, that we are live on YouTube, on the YouTube Shul channel. So if you can message people to go on to Woodside Park Shul YouTube, they can watch the service and participate in the same way. I think if we start by stating the obvious, that the hundreds that are here and the hundreds that were on Friday at the Levaya, at the funeral, are testimony to the love and the tremendous influence and inspiration that Jeffrey had on so many, in breadth and in depth, across generations and across the course of our communal history. So we want to start by expressing our condolences on behalf of the community, on behalf of Gil and myself and the executive, and we'll hear from the chair a bit later on, but we wish long life to Elaine, to Joshua, to Aryeh, and to Martin. We wish each and every one of you and your respective families long life and only simchas, and we are only sorry that we can't be with you in person to be able to offer you the support and the comfort which you so much need and deserve at this difficult time. The order for tonight for the Shiva service is that we will start with Mariv. I'm going to share the screen in a minute so that you can follow along. And after Mariv, then we will have the Psalms as we would in a Shiva house, which will also be on the screen. And then after that, we'll have a number of eulogies and reflections from family and friends. So we are going to begin with the Mariv service. Let me just see if I can share it with everyone. Urachum yichapel van v'lo yashchis v'lo shiva povlo ikachomaso Adonai Yashia Melech Yaneinu v'yam kareinu Baruch atu Adonai Linu Melech Olam Asher b'kol ha'moed. El chai v'kayam tamid yimloch aleinu le'elam v'oeh Baruch atu Adonai Amariv Aravim Ava Salam Beit Salam Chavta Torah Mitzvos Chokim Mishpatim Salamata Alkein Adonai Eloheinu v'shachveinu u'kameinu v'kecha mismach v'divrei sa'asech v'sosech v'wed Ki heim chayenu v'rech yameinu v'hem negei yomam v'layla v'yavasecha atzmeni yolomim Baruch atu Adonai ohev amo Yisrael El Melech Ne'eman Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Yata is Adonai Elohecha b'chol
I think maybe I'm on YouTube and not on.
ושננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ולתך בדרך ושבתך ובמך ושאלתם לבדיך וילדת בית ביתך וכסבתם את ביתך ובשבילך והיה משמיה תשמעו עמוס שאנוכי מצווה אתכם היום ויעבוס מלאכם נתו בכל לבכם וכל נפשכם ונשאתם את ארצכם ותראו המקוש ויאספת את גניך וסירשך ובשבילך ונשאתי עשב בצדך לבנתך ואכלת סבתך וישמרו לכם פן יפתה לבבכם ושאתם ואתם עליהם אחרים שתחביסם להם וחרפנה בכם ויצא עש השמיים וימות עמדם בשבילה ואתם מרם מצווה שנעשה לכם שמתם מצווה ללבוכם ונשכם כשאתם וישם לצדכם בילדת לבית ביניכם ונמדתם וישם את פניכם לדבר שבתך ובשך ובתך בדרך ושב בכל דבר וחסבתם את בשך ושלכם ואנבו ימיכם ומיניכם ולאדום השם נשפטנה בשיכם וסיסלם ובשמיים היום הם שואלים אותה בבני ישראל במתן יצאו להם סיסס הכבד לדרייסם נפנו על סיסס הכנב סיסס חסי לכן לסיסס ריסם או ישראל אז חתם את כל מסווסים ובסיסם או יסם ולא יסיסו אחרי לבבכם ואחרי ניכם השאתם זנים לכם למען תשכו בסיסם את כל מסוסי ויסנקשם להיכם ונייתנה להיכם שעושי סייסכם את שם יש לכם לאלוהים עניינה להיכם אמס Adonai Elohim Emes, Bemna Koza, Es became a link, you were not in the says, I'm not a small moment in American, and I got on the same way for land was a new Marcus Abrason קיבלו עליהם משה בני סלחה ענו שירה בשמחה רבה ויאמרו כולם מי כמוך בלים אדוני מי כמוך נדע בקודש נראתי להוסיף עליה. מלכות קורבנך וקיים לפני משה זה עליונו ויאמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד ונאמר כבנת יעקב וכלום יהיה חזק ממנו ברוכתו אדוני גאל ישראל אשכבנו ונשלום. אוי טבע כלום ושמו סייסי נבואי נחיים ושלום יעתה ביד עולם ברוכתו אדוני שומר עמו ישראל לעד ברוך אדוני לעולם אמן ואמן. ברוך אדוני יהי כבוד. יהי חסד עלינו. והנה נשמח לבין זגן המשמעת מאוד. כי המלך שלך היא כל המעט מלך ובבוד כי אין לנו מלך אלא אתה ברוך אתה אדוני המלך בכבוד תמיד ימלוך עלינו ויהיה ביעל כל מעשיו. We continue with the silent Amida. Going to continue now with Aleinu. Aleinu l'shabech ladon hakol. ואנחנו קיימים משתחווים במועדים לפני מלך מלכי המלוך עם הקדוש ברוך הוא שזה שמונה שמונה ושכן הוא אלינו אז מוגד לעשותו כך זה זאת עד היום ושמונה אחד יזנוי הוא עולים משהו מונה מתחתנו כן נקבל לך עוד עלינו לזמן אבל בזה שבידי קש בית ואו כי אנחנו נראה שאתם יכולים פה לבלך ונאמר וידנה למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא ידנה אחד ושמו אחד. Going to continue now with Psalm 49. I'd like to call upon Reverend Plasko. I can't see him. Is Reverend Plasko able to unmute himself and to lead us in Lam Natzech? You need to unmute yourself. Reverend Plasko, you need to unmute yourself. Unmute on the computer. Reverend, there you go.
Hear me now?
Yes. If you speak a bit louder.
גם בני אדם, גם בני איש, יחד אשיב ואביון.
Peter Bechok was Bagus Levis Vunos.
התלם אשר אוזני, אבטח בחינוך ידעתי.
Lomo Iro Bimira Avon Akiva Yusubeni.
הבוטחים על חילם וברוב אושרם יתהללו.
Achlafada Yivde Ish Layetain Lihim Kafro.
בעיקר פדיון נפשם וחדל לעולם. כי ירא חכמים ימוצו, יחד חסיל ובא יאבדו, ועזבו לאחרים חילם.
Kibam betemodi la mishkanasam ledo vado. Haru bishmasam aledomos.
האדם בקבל ילין נמשל כבהמות נדבו.
Zetakom kesalam albakreim b'fihim yirtzu sela.
כצאן לשאול שתו, מוות ירם וירדו בם משתרים לבוקם, וצורם לבלות שאול מזבולו.
Ak Elohim yiftenashi miyad sha'o ki kacheni sela.
אל תירא כי יעשיר איש כי ירבה כבוד ביתו.
כי לא מסו ייקח הכל, לא ירד אחריו כבודו.
כי נפשו בחייו יברך, ויודוך כי תיטיב לך.
תבוא עדו אבוסיו הנצח לא יראו.
אדם ביקר ולא יבין, נמשל כבהמות נדבו.
שכח. That concludes the formal part of the service. We'll have a memorial prayer at the end by Cousin Robin. Meantime, we are going to move on to some reflections and eulogies. And we'd like to call upon, firstly, Joshua, son, Jeffrey's son. We know that both you and Aryeh were the apple of his eye. He was so proud of all your accomplishments and your achievements and shep nachas from you, and watched and with tremendous pride all of your accomplishments over the course of your so many years in Woodside Park and in Israel. And we'd like to call upon you now, Joshua, if you can unmute yourself and share some reflections.
Thank you very much. And thank you to everyone who has taken the time to attend this evening. On the one hand, the current situation has created numerous challenges for social gatherings. On the other hand, I'm comforted by being able to join this evening with the Woodside Park community while still enjoying the pleasant, mild weather here in Israel. Whilst I'm not a frequent or particularly learned speaker, I wanted to say a few words at this gathering of the Woodside Park community in honor of my dear father, and specifically about the Woodside Park community. The Woodside Park shul and community was an enormous part of my father's life. all the way from his childhood up to his passing last week. By extension, it was therefore also a big part of mine and my brother Aryeh's lives growing up. And I'm still in close contact with the friends I grew up with there. When COVID started and shuls closed, I started doing Shabbat davening with my kids, teaching them the tunes I grew up with in the Woodside Park Children's Service. I think you might be able to hear my son Matanel shouting the tunes all the way over in the UK. For Woodside Park and my dad, I think it's relevant to separate out the importance to him of both aspects, the shul and the community. On the one hand, the ritual and halachic aspects of shul were very important to him. He enjoyed the subtleties and edge cases about how the davening is run. What is the correct tune for the Kaddish after laning during Shacharit on Yom Tov? What is the last time this year when you say Le David Hashem Ori? The answer to that depends on when you ask and also what type of year you are talking about. For him, it wasn't just about knowing this, it was his enthusiasm for it and for teaching us and the others around him about it, which is one of my lasting impressions of him. Here in Israel, we are still permitted small outdoor minyanim, which has allowed us to have tefillot for the Shiva, which we are very grateful for. For many months, I've been davening Shacharit on Shabbat morning at the same reduced size minyan as my brother Aryeh. I should add that on one memorable Shabbat, amongst the Brits, Americans, Canadians, Australians, and perhaps even some Savras at this minyan, Woodside Park was the most represented. So anyway, a few weeks ago, Aryeh came over to me and said, I just did a very daddy thing. I volunteered to do Haftarah today. Now, I immediately understood what he meant. That Shabbat was Parshat Miketz, which unusually this year was not Hanukkah. That meant that we only read that specific Haftarah roughly once in every 10 years, making it the rarest Haftarah to read. This was exactly the sort of event that Dad loved, and having inherited Dad's enthusiasm for this sort of thing, Aryeh was both excited to do the Haftarah and also to tell Dad afterwards. Of course, it goes without saying that he sang the Nusach that we both learned from Dad back in Woodside Park. But for Dad, it wasn't just about the ritual aspects of shul. He was deeply involved in the human aspects of the community as well. Woodside Park is hardly a small community, but it felt like he knew everyone, their name, who they were, and interesting facts and trivia about them. We've had several messages from people who joined the shul at some point and remembered Dad as one of the first people who welcomed them and spoke to them there. As I said before, my dad taught my brother and I for our bar mitzvahs. And one of my abiding memories is him telling me that I had to sing loudly and clearly. You have to make sure that Mr. Cohen right at the back can hear you. Sadly, I don't remember the exact name he said, but he certainly knew exactly who sat in the seat at the furthest part of the men's section from the bimah, and probably most of the other people as well. Of course, whilst the shul aspect and the community aspect were separately important to him, he also enjoyed combining the two by helping members of the community with ritual aspects of the shul. One of his favorite endeavors in this area was the explanatory Yamim Noraim service, which he used to run with our dear friend Mervyn Leviton, which would combine explanations about some of the key parts of the Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur services, together with my dad singing some of those parts, as he so loved to do. My daughter Hadara, who is now 10 years old, has inherited this love of singing and is now the one who does all the singing parts of davening for the rest of her class in school every single day, which we get to enjoy secondhand as she sits at home doing remote learning via Zoom. After his illness in 1990, the shul continued to be a big part of Dad's life. He was still a regular attendee, and I clearly remember walking back home with him after Shabbat services. It was slower and more difficult than it had been, but he would still do it week in, week out. I also remember how community members would still take the time to walk back with him, despite this slower pace. Then, later on in his life, when he was less mobile, members of the community would volunteer to push him in his wheelchair or to accompany him. Throughout that time, the support and warmth of the community was an important part of how our family coped with the adversity we faced. And we greatly appreciate how this has continued all this time, including through the most recent difficult months and onwards. With my brother and I living so far away, we are both comforted and inspired by the friendship and support which the community has given our parents, and we're very grateful that they're part of such a special community. We are also proud to see the community continue to be vibrant and active, even in the most recent challenging times. I'm sure the community will go from strength to strength and continue with its activity and support. To finish off, one of the primary lessons that I like to take from Dad is that of making the best of an adverse situation and trying to see the bright side. And this was brilliantly illustrated just a few days ago. Our family had taken the difficult decision to transport him to Israel for burial. And following some intense efforts from Mum and Uncle Martin in the UK and myself and Aryeh in Israel, the agent making the arrangements told us that El Al would be taking him. Now, Aryeh and I had joked about the in-depth security questions you usually get from El Al. It was therefore with a certain amount of disbelief that I received a phone call from El Al's security about an hour before the flight was due to leave. "Did your father go through any medical procedures?" the security lady asked me. I was a little baffled. He'd just been in hospital, and I was a little bit worried this was going to be some sort of COVID-related bureaucratic complication that we hadn't expected and could delay the funeral to after Shabbat or who knows when. I asked her if she could be a little more specific, as I wasn't sure what she meant. I'm proud to say this conversation was all in Hebrew. Did he have any medical procedures, operations, maybe on his shoulder or his leg? At that point, the penny dropped. I said to her, yes. Sadly, he underwent a number of significant operations during his lifetime, and some of them may have included leaving supports made out of metal in his body. "Ah, thank you, sir," she said. "That's fine." Now, to appreciate just how brilliant a story this is, you have to know something else about Dad. We were all very lucky that following his illness in 1990, he was able to travel to Israel on a number of different occasions, both for holiday with the family and also to visit us when we came to live here. As part of his attitude of seeing the bright side, he would jokingly complain how every time he traveled, despite all the metal in his body, the metal detectors would never go off and he would never get questions from security about it. And so it was, on his final journey, it finally happened for him. And I like to think he would have appreciated the irony. No pun intended. Thank you again to you all for being here this evening. Thank you to Rabbi and Kila Hackenbroch for hosting this event and for their specific support in this difficult time. Thank you to the others who have agreed to speak this evening. And thank you to the wider Woodside Park community for providing us with such a meaningful upbringing and for your wonderful support of our parents. May we merit to see many simchas together, and may we merit to see the gathering of our people here to the land of Israel, b'mheira b'yameinu.
Amen. Thank you, Joshua, for that very fitting and moving tribute to your father. We are all, it goes without saying, absolutely heartbroken and grieving this irreplaceable loss of our dear friend, somebody who we all considered an extended part of our family, the Woodside Park family, and our own families. We read in a parsha only this past week about the 10th plague that was in Egypt, and we're told that there was not a home, an Egyptian home, where there was nothing, where there was not a loss and where there was not mourning. It is in a different context here, but the sentiment is certainly the same. There is not a house, there is not a home in Woodside Park in which we are not grieving and mourning this tremendous loss. because he touched the hearts of each and every one of us in one way or another. He was very much the heartbeat of our community, a teacher, a role model, and a friend to so many. He was a teacher par excellence, with tremendous patience and sensitivity and love for every student who he considered precious. We learn in the Gemara and the Talmud about Rabbi, who had to have the patience to teach a student 400 times. And after he taught him the 400th time, and he thought that he had done and finished, the student said he hadn't quite caught it, and therefore would he mind repeating it again, and he taught him another 400 times. Jeffrey didn't just select and choose the most outstanding students, but he was willing to take on some of the most challenging students for bar mitzvah, and he taught them so that they were able to excel and to feel a tremendous sense of pride and confidence on their bar mitzvah, on their occasion. He taught people how to daven, how to pray, how to read. He had so many students, be it for laning or for the Haftorah, through the explanatory service that we already heard about. And what was fascinating about Jeffrey is that he was equally able to relate and to teach young and old, religious or irreligious. He was able to connect and to relate to each and every person. And that was because of his innate love for people and for community. His love and his passion for Judaism was simply infectious. He was very passionate, as we already have heard, about upholding traditions of the community, minhagim. And I was just flicking through my emails over the last 12 years, and almost like clockwork, at certain times of the year, I would receive the email, the reminder. It always started the same way, it always finished the same way, exceptionally courteous, exceptionally polite, very prim and proper. And it always was a reminder about what is our tradition, which is the correct Haftorah. Remember, Rabbi, Vayishlach, not to do Obadya. And there was occasion where we did have the odd word of disagreement about the Sidurim and the Machzorim, the Routledge and the Art Scroll. But one of the things that I realized is that, in particular, when it came to the Haftorah, Jeffrey, and he wrote to me explicitly several times, the reason why he was particular was twofold. One is because his love and passion for Judaism, and the other one is because he never, and he wrote this, never wanted anyone to feel any embarrassment when it came to them being on that bimah. For anybody to call out because he's done the wrong one, that was not what he wanted. He always wanted to feel a sense of pride, and therefore he went to the nth degree, reminding us all of what is the proud tradition, because he loved our davening, he loved our services, and he loved our community. Perhaps one of Jeffrey's greatest attributes was in fact his faith, his emunah. Over the last 30 years, he had more than his fair share of challenges, ordeals, trials and tribulations, his ups and his downs. We cannot imagine some of the challenges that he faced. And yet, with tremendous tenacity and temerity and courage, he was able to overcome them all. And there was the odd occasion where he did share with me a little insight into his world and the challenges that he faced. And time and again, he shared with me the fact that it was his faith that carried him through. But perhaps what is his lasting legacy, beyond the community, beyond all the friends, is of course his family. First and foremost in Jeffrey's life was his love and pride in his sons, Joshua and Aryeh. He was so proud of the way that they became leaders in their own right, leading services and being proud of their Jewish identity and following in the family's footsteps. He was also exceptionally appreciative of his Eishes Chayil, his incredible, remarkable wife, Elaine, who stood by his side, supported him through thick and thin, all the accomplishments, all the achievements, and everything that Jeffrey was able to achieve in his life was in no small part due to the wonderful support that Elaine offered him. We will miss Jeffrey tremendously, but we know that the best way to perpetuate his legacy is to be able to be passionate and proud of our identity, of our Jewish faith, and a proud sense of our community. May his memory be one of blessing. Amen. I'd like now to call upon our chairman, Mr. Stephen Wolf, who, dare I say it, has knew Jeffrey for the whole of his life. One second, we can't hear you.
I have unmuted myself. Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Thank
you very much, Rabbi. And thank you very much for the introduction. Elaine, Josh, Aryeh, and Martin. As Rabbi Hackenbroch has rightly said, I have known Jeffrey all my life. I've been a proud member of Woodside Park, as many of you know, throughout that time. And Jeffrey's always been part of my Woodside Park shul community experience. From being my madrich when I was at Bnei Akiva, from being my inspiration when I did my Haftorah on my Ofruf, and then, of course, following my own children's Simchas, Jeffrey was always there. And now, of course, as chair of the community, it was Jeffrey to whom I turned on a number of occasions, just for that word of guidance, just whilst we were at shul. As many of you know, I try and keep a relatively low profile during services. It's not my area of expertise, but occasionally I needed some guidance and he was the right person to turn to. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a true honor being chair of Woodside Park. I think I have expressed that on numerous occasions. It's a true honor because I get the opportunity to meet people, not just from our community, but from elsewhere, our visitors, our guests. And I'm incredibly proud to be able to welcome them. But sometimes that honor is even exceeded beyond what one can imagine as being a chair of a community. And that is when you have an opportunity like I have this evening to speak on behalf of everyone. I know that there will be many who are speaking after me and who will have memories of Jeffrey and will have more knowledge halachically of what he contributed to the community. But it is a true honor to speak on behalf of the community, to thank him and to remember all that he has done for us. There are many members of Woodside Park, but there are members and there are members. And Jeffrey was at that level of importance. As Rabbi Hackenbroch has rightly said, we are at a loss of the devastating vacuum that inevitably will be caused to our community. But we are able to look back with great fondness, respect, admiration, privilege that he was part of Woodside Park for so many years. And in his wonderful sons, Josh, who I don't think I know as well, but Aryeh and I worked together a little while ago when I was involved with Cheder and Aryeh ran Cheder. I know that in them, a credible legacy will follow. And in that is obviously Jeffrey's proudest moment, proudest achievement. Elaine, it's very hard to speak on Zoom and to convey the community's thoughts, but I trust in the honor I have had in speaking on behalf of the community. It will be appreciated by the dozens, hundreds or so people who are here with us this evening. And I can simply say on behalf of the shul council, that Jeffrey was an inspiration to us all, a great loss to the community, but of course the greatest loss to you Aryeh, Josh, and Martin. And for that, we convey our fondest condolences, our fondest best wishes. We wish you all a long and healthy life, one that won't ever be free of ups and downs. That's not the way of the world. And of course, we're dealing with particularly difficult, challenging times now. But his memory will be a blessing, that I know. His legacy will be a blessing, that I know. And through his children and grandchildren, he'll never be forgotten. And he will never be forgotten at Woodside Park. I wish you all well. I wish you all a long life. Take care. God bless. Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Stephen, for that very fitting tribute. We'd like to call upon now long-term friend and colleague who, as we've already heard, ran the explanatory service, and we also miss so much in Woodside Park to this day, Mervyn Leviton, to share some reflections and words.
Thank you, Kai. Thank you. Shalom Erev Tov from Israel, from Ruth and I, with our fond memories of our wonderful, happy, really happy years as a member of be with you, and we left Woodside Park with sorrow, but happiness to be here in Israel with all our family, Baruch Hashem. Now, Jeffrey. Well, I first met Jeffrey in 1972, when we were both on a United Synagogue 5-week teacher seminar in Israel. And it did not take us long to discover that we actually had a lot in common, even though he was then a single young man and I was already married with 2 children. However, it was not until we moved to Woodside Park that our friendship with Jeffrey and Elaine really developed. In fact, my first visit to Woodside Park Shul was actually on a Friday night. And the very first person, by pure chance, the first person I met as I arrived at Shul was Jeffrey, who greeted me with the words, "May I be the first to welcome you to Woodside Park." And he really was. I walked in with him and I chose a particular seat where I thought I'd be okay to sit on there, that's fine. But Jeffrey said to me, "Oh, no," he said, "you can't sit there." I said, "Oh, sorry." He said, "No, that's someone else's seat." And the words he then said, I've never forgotten. He said, "You can't sit there, it's someone else's seat, and his yichus is greater than your tuchus." And I thought, I've never forgotten. However, we did in the end up sitting actually very close to each other on either side of the aisle. And it was good for us because we could actually entertain ourselves during the services and of course to daven, absolutely so. But it was great sitting next to him. And as Joshua has mentioned, that for both of us, one of our greatest joys was conducting the adult explanatory service on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. It's a great time for us. And we seem to be a good team together. I explained the tefillah, and Jeffrey, with his beautiful voice, led the singing. And at the end of each service, we just could not resist closing each service with the words of the 2 Ronnies. I would say, "So it's Shana Tova from me," and he would say, "And it's Shana Tova from him." Another regular weekly moment of fun between us. I mean, I promise you it wasn't fun every time we went there, but we did try to enjoy ourselves whenever it was possible. And another regular weekly moment of fun was just before the prayer for the royal family. Jeffrey used to time it at a certain point as the rabbi began the prayer. And when, at the right time, according to Jeffrey, when he said loudly, "Knock, knock," I would respond, "Who's there?" and with a little bit of muzzle. At that moment, the rabbi would say, after I said, "Who's there?" he would say, "He who gives salvation." And we were both of us, we were thrilled when very, very occasionally we got the timing right. Didn't happen very often, but that's Jeffrey for you. Now, finally, my friends, on a serious note, Ruth and I have always enjoyed and valued our friendship with Elaine and Jeffrey. And we spent many happy hours with them when they have visited to see us in Netanya. Jeffrey, Alav HaShalom, will be truly, truly missed, as we have all noted. We will miss him terribly. May his name be always for a blessing. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you for that, Mervyn. I'd like to call upon finally a couple of brief words from Ronnie Pass, one of the young members of our community, who for a number of years, together with his brother Jordan and a number of others of the youth, pushed Jeffrey to shul week in, week out.
Pushed Jeffrey to shul.
Hi. Hi. Can I be heard?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. I'd like to wish long life to Elaine, Joshua, Aryeh, and Martin. And as the rabbi said, over the last few years, myself and along with other members of the youth of the shul have had the opportunity and the privilege to walk with Jeffrey to shul as he would pilot his motorized Shabbat wheelchair. I'm sure some of you saw it. He got to be quite a good pilot by the end of it. There were a few close calls, but he had it under control. Anyway, sorry. The conversations with Jeffrey on the way, it would always be interesting because it wasn't just talking. It wasn't just talking. It was a talk as well. And he would always listen to what we had to say about all manner of topics, and then he would give his perspective. And it was always interesting. And then we would stop talking and he would start talking and we would listen as he told us about his many experiences at the shul. I always found it the most interesting when he spoke about Woodside Park from years and years ago, talking about the old building. And for me, I've grown up in the shul. I've only ever known the new building and all of this, but he told us about Simchat Torah with the different doors and how everyone would go in one door, out the other, and lots of things like this. And for all of us, I think all of us that got to walk with Jeffrey, it was always very nice. And all of these experiences I will miss. And from someone who's grown up in this community, I can say that Woodside Park definitely won't be the same without Jeffrey.
Thank you, Ronnie, so much for those words. We'd lastly like to call upon Chazan Robbins, who will now recite the memorial prayer.
ערך אפיים ורב חסד, המסק פרר פשע והגרבת ישע, ומנוחה נכונה תחת כנפי השכינה. במעלות קדושים וטהורים מסירים את נשמת רב שלמה חיאל בן יהושע הלוי שהלך לעולמו. אדם על הרחמים זכה לו לתום כוזנותיו וצדקתו ורצון החיים, ונקלו שערי צדק ואורה שערי חמלה וחנינה, בסדר כנפיך תסתירהו לעולמים. יצרוב החיים את נשמתו, אדוני הוא נחלתו, וינוח בשלום על משכבו, ונאמר
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Cousin Robbins. That beautiful memorial prayer. That is the conclusion of the service. I would ask everyone to join with me in saying the greeting of consolation that we say to the mourners at this time. A reminder from the family for those that would like to speak with them. Details have been emailed out to the community with the times and the way to book through the booking system. I believe it's on Wednesday, 11:30 till 2. Details were emailed out in that email, and if anyone needs further details, they can contact me afterwards, and we can direct you in the right way. So we will now say and ask Cousin Robbins, together with Cousin Michael Plasker, if you'd like to join with me as we say the traditional greeting of consolation to the mourners. Hamakom. Hold on one second, let me just unmute.
Okay.
Are you unmuted? Right. Hamakom yenachem v'stok shah avalei Zion v'Yerushalayim. May the Almighty comfort you among other mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. On behalf of the whole of the Woodside Park community and beyond, we wish you all long life and only simchas. Thank you everyone for joining us. That is the end of the service, and that is the end for this evening. Wishing everyone only simchas. Keep safe, keep well, look after yourselves, and please God, we look forward to seeing everyone in the not too distant future when it is safe on happy occasions. All the very best. Keep safe, keep well.